By supper, Bramwell Kester had already heard 6 arguments. 3 were about work, 2 were about money, 1 was about who had eaten the last onion. He stood at the head of the kitchen table, staring at 5 grown children who were all old enough to manage their own lives and somehow still managed to fill his house like an invading army. Avayan, 28, claimed the rye fields needed another week before cutting. Lissa, 26, insisted the goat shed roof would collapse first. Doran, 24, had somehow turned both conversations into an argument about cider barrels. Miral, 22, was adding numbers in a ledger with enough irritation to frighten ink. And Teb, 20, was explaining why leaving farming for millwork did not mean abandoning the family. Bramwell lifted the final loaf of rye bread. Everyone stopped. Wonderful, Doran said. Father has discovered authority. Father has discovered dinner. He cut the loaf. 6 portions. Not generous. Enough. Kester Hollow was not starving. It was simply stretched. That was normal on Brackenford Shelf, where rocky soil forced families to respect every carrot and every handful of grain. Then someone knocked. The room went quiet. Nobody visited after dark without a reason. Bramwell opened the door. A tall orc woman stood outside beneath cold autumn rain. Her moss-green skin looked pale from exhaustion. Long black hair had been braided tightly for travel, though several strands clung wetly to her face. She carried 1 small bundle. Nothing else. Evening, Bramwell said. Her amber eyes remained cautious. Is the eastern road still open? Not tonight. She looked toward the rain. The crossing? Flooded. A slight disappointment crossed her face. She nodded politely. Thank you. Then she turned to leave. Bramwell noticed how slowly she moved. When did you last eat? She stopped. That isn't your concern. It became my concern when you nearly fell off my porch. I didn't. You considered it. From behind him, Doran whispered. I like her. Lissa elbowed him. Bramwell looked back toward the table. 6 small pieces of bread. Then at the woman. He picked up his own portion. Broke it in half. Held 1 piece toward her. She stared at it. I can't pay. I didn't ask. I can't work tonight. I didn't ask that either. Avayan appeared behind Bramwell. Father. Quiet. Not disrespectful. A warning. We barely have enough for ourselves. Bramwell glanced at the crowded table. Then returned his attention to the orc woman. Then we barely have enough for 1 more. Her expression changed. Not relief exactly. Disbelief. The rain strengthened. Bramwell opened the door wider. Come inside before the weather decides for us. Her name was Ruja Fen. She sat at the far end of the table as though keeping herself close to the exit. 6 people watched her eat. Eventually Doran leaned back. We usually pretend not to count bites. Miral looked horrified. Doran. What? We do. Ruja almost smiled. Almost. She ate carefully, breaking the bread into smaller pieces before touching the stew. Halfway through the meal, Bramwell noticed her wrap the remaining bread in cloth. For tomorrow? He asked. Her shoulders tightened. Yes, there will be breakfast. I won't be here. Everyone looked at her. She lowered her eyes. I only needed shelter until the rain passes. Lissa asked, where are you going? East. Why? Ruja looked at Bramwell. Does it matter? He shook his head. Not tonight. She slept beside the bakeroom stove. The farmhouse had 5 tiny bedrooms and 1 belonging to Bramwell. There truly was nowhere else. Ruja insisted the goat shed would do. Bramwell refused. Goats snore. So do people. Mine do worse. Father, Avayan said. He's right, Miral replied without looking up from her ledger. By sunrise, Ruja had already swept the kitchen. Refreshed the neglected rye starter. Removed 3 spoiled onions. Repacked 2 cabbage crocks. And somehow convinced Teb to repair the bakeroom vent. Avayan watched her from the doorway. She's making herself difficult to send away. Bramwell poured coffee. Or useful because she doesn't know how else to feel safe. Avayan frowned. You trust her? I trust what I've seen. You've seen her for 12 hours. I've known men 20 years who disappointed me faster. That ended the argument, temporarily. On the 2nd day, Ruja asked to see the root cellar. Avayan immediately objected. That's our winter food. I know. Then why? Because you're storing it badly. The room froze. Avayan stared at her. You've been here 1 night. Your turnips have been sweating for 3 weeks. Doran coughed to hide laughter. Avayan looked toward Bramwell. Bramwell folded his arms. Prove it. Ruja did. The root vegetables were packed too closely to the warm wall. 2 cider barrels had been sealed before fermentation finished. The cabbage was wasting instead of souring properly. The goat whey Lissa discarded every morning could preserve vegetables and strengthen bread. The rye starter was alive but barely. Ruja moved through the cellar with calm precision. Miral began taking notes. How much difference could this make? Bramwell asked. Ruja studied the shelves. 6 weeks. Silence. Avayan frowned. You can stretch this food 6 weeks? If everyone stops treating preservation like storing things and hoping. Doran smiled. I definitely like her. Ruja looked at him. You seal cider too warm. His smile vanished. I no longer like her. For the first time, the kitchen erupted in laughter. Even Ruja joined them. That evening, Miral finally asked what everyone had been wondering. How do you know all this? Ruja's smile disappeared. I was a fermentation keeper. For a farm? Lissa asked. For my clan. You had a clan? The question came out before Teb could stop it. Ruja became very still. Once. Nobody pushed further. Bramwell noticed that, and appreciated his children for it. 2 days earlier, every person at the table had been wondering when the stranger would leave. Now everyone was wondering what she might teach them tomorrow. On the 5th morning, Bramwell found her travel bundle packed beside the door. You're leaving. Ruja nodded. The rain stopped. So? I've eaten the bread. Bramwell stared. The bread? My debt. He actually laughed, then realized she was serious. You think half a loaf created a debt? It created shelter. It created supper. And warmth. Yes, I've repaid it. How? She gestured toward the cellar. Bramwell shook his head. You showed us how not to ruin our own food. That counts. No. Her expression hardened. I don't take charity. This is not charity. Then what is it? Bramwell considered that an invitation. That unsettled her more than argument would have. He continued. Stay until first frost. I'll need wages. You're negotiating now? Yes. Better. Sarna Vel, who ran the tavern at Brackenford Crossing, needed someone who understood preserves. Bramwell arranged the introduction. By the end of the week, Ruja had paid work. Her own coins, her own schedule, her own reason to remain that did not depend on Bramwell's kindness. Something visibly eased inside her. The household changed faster than any of them admitted. Avayan began planning winter stores with Ruja rather than around her. Lissa experimented with brined goat cheese. Doran followed Ruja through the cider shed asking enough questions to make her threaten him with a bung hammer. Miral kept exact preservation yields. Teb designed adjustable wooden vents for the root cellar after Ruja complained that the old system trapped moisture. One evening all 7 sat around the table arguing simultaneously. Bramwell tried to intervene. Ruja lifted a hand. Stop. Everyone did, including Bramwell. She looked at him. Your children are adults. I've noticed. Then let them solve their own argument. They remain inconveniently mine. Doran raised his cup. To being inconvenient. 5 cups lifted. Ruja laughed so suddenly she had to cover her mouth. Bramwell watched her, not as someone he had rescued, not even as a guest. Something quieter had begun. The house had made room for her. And somehow, instead of becoming more crowded, Kester Hollow had started feeling larger. Ovik Drell recognized Ruja at Brackenford Crossing. She was carrying vinegar jars into Sarna Vel's tavern when the orc merchant stopped beside his wagon. Ruja Fen? Her hands tightened. People turned. Ovik looked almost uncomfortable. I heard you went east. I didn't. His gaze moved toward the tavern. They employ you here? Sarna appeared in the doorway. I do. Ovik lowered his voice. Does she know your clan declared you waste-born? The street fell silent. Waste-born. Someone who had endangered communal food. Sarna looked at Ruja, not accusingly. Waiting. Ruja placed the jars down. I should finish unloading. That evening, the Kester table was quieter than usual. Finally Avayan asked. Is it true? Yes. Doran stopped eating. What did you do? According to them? Destroyed winter stores. And according to you? Ruja looked at her bowl. I refused to sign a record. Miral leaned forward. What record? Ruja stood. I defended myself once. They chose the easier story. Then she left. Miral watched the door. Something's wrong. How can you tell? Teb asked. The dates. She opened her market ledger. Ovik's clan began purchasing emergency grain before Ruja was expelled. Avayan understood immediately. If she caused the shortage. Miral nodded. Why were they already short? 3 weeks later, Ovik returned. This time, he did not look proud. Our stores are failing. Ruja said nothing. More barrels every week. And? Ovik swallowed. We need you to look. Ruja almost refused. Instead, she said, bring samples. 2 days later, Sarna's tavern became an examination room. Ruja opened the first cabbage crock. She smelled it once. Unsafe. The second showed mold beneath the rim. The cider sample released too much pressure. Ruja pointed toward a dark line inside one barrel stave. This started before my exile. Miral compared the barrel markings with trading receipts. The dates were changed. Ovik went pale. Ruja finally told them everything. Elder Bronver had discovered widespread spoilage months earlier, admitting it would have ended his authority as senior foodkeeper. So he concealed the losses. then ordered Ruja to certify damaged stores as safe. She refused. He told me one signature would prevent panic. Bramwell asked quietly, and you? I told him one signature wouldn't make rotten food edible. So Brone blamed her. The clan believed the elder, not the woman contradicting him. Bramwell's jaw tightened. Ruja noticed. Don't what? Become angry on my behalf. I'm allowed. Fine. A pause. Just don't become stupid on my behalf. Doran nearly choked laughing. Even Bramwell smiled. The clan representatives arrived without weapons. 6 orc adults stood in Kester Hollow's yard with Elder Brone conspicuously absent. Their new foodkeeper spoke first. Brone has been removed. Ruja remained expressionless. We reviewed the records. You were telling the truth. They offered compensation, restoration of her name, her former position. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Ruja asked, do you believe me now because I was right? The representative hesitated, or because your barrels finally proved you wrong? That silence answered enough. Ruja accepted the compensation. She accepted the public correction. She did not accept the job. You need help rebuilding your stores, she said. I can provide it. The representative brightened. As fermentation keeper? As a consultant? Doran grinned behind her. My rates will be written down. Muriel immediately produced paper, and paid before each visit. The representative blinked. Ruja looked at Muriel. I like this family. Muriel smiled. We're expensive. By spring, Ruja had options. Real ones. 3 settlements offered her work. Her consulting wages had grown. Her clan compensation remained untouched. She could rent a cottage, buy equipment, leave Brackenford entirely. That was when Bramwell became quiet. Doran noticed first. Father, you look like someone stole your favorite goat. I don't have a favorite goat. That's exactly what a man with a favorite goat says. Bramwell walked away, but Ruja noticed too. One evening, she found him repairing fencing alone. You asked me to stay when I had nothing. He kept working. Why are you silent now that I can? His hands stopped. Because before, you needed somewhere to go. And now? Now you have choices. He finally faced her. If I ask now, the answer has to belong entirely to you. Ruja stared at him. This man had shared bread when she could give nothing back. And now, when she finally possessed something worth staying for, he refused to use her gratitude against her. So ask. Bramwell swallowed. Stay. Why? Because this house is better with you in it. Ruja stepped closer. Try again. His smile appeared slowly. Because I'm better with you in it. That worked. She kissed him, briefly, softly, then stepped back. Bramwell blinked. Was that yes? No. His face fell. Ruja smiled. That was me telling you to ask properly tomorrow. A year later, Kester Hollow was still crowded. Just differently. Avean expanded the rye acreage. Lissa's aged goat cheese became embarrassingly popular. Doran managed the cider cellar with almost religious seriousness. Muriel handled regional accounts. Teb installed ventilation systems in cellars across Brackenford. One by one, Bramwell's children built lives that extended beyond their father's table. They still came home constantly, usually without warning. Ruja ran preservation workshops from a converted storehouse beside the farm. Her own business, her own money, her own name, and when people asked which clan she belonged to now, she no longer needed an answer. One cold autumn evening, someone knocked. A road-weary traveler stood outside. Is the eastern road open? Ruja and Bramwell exchanged a look. On the table sat one fresh rye loaf. Not a large one. Ruja picked it up, broke it in half. She handed one piece to the stranger. Eat. The traveler hesitated. I can't pay. Ruja smiled. Neither could I. Behind her, Doran called. Are we collecting strangers again? Lissa shouted back. Set another bowl. Bramwell leaned against the doorway. Ruja looked at the crowded kitchen, then at the half loaf remaining in her hands. Think we have enough? Bramwell smiled. We did the first time. Once, Bramwell Kester had 5 grown children, a crowded farmhouse and bread too small for the people already sitting at his table. Ruja Fen had no clan, no home, no proof that she deserved anyone's trust. Neither had enough to fix the other's life. But Bramwell had opened a door. Ruja had chosen, eventually, not to walk back through it. And between those two decisions, something larger than generosity had taken root. A household became a family. A guest became someone who could leave but chose to stay. And half a loaf became proof of something neither of them had understood that first rainy evening. You do not always need abundance before making room for another person. Sometimes you simply make room. And somehow, that is enough.